spooky. It's Halloween time, yay. Hello. Happy Halloween! Okay, it's the 28th when I'm filming this, but by the time this goes live, it will be Halloween. It is a time of candy, pumpkins, a touch of witchiness, and people throwing toilet paper at other people's houses. But only sometimes. Hopefully. Halloween is now considered a major holiday, and also the start of the holiday season. Well, okay, it is to me. But how did we get here? A lot of the festivities I just mentioned are now associated with Halloween, but they also have roots in the 3-day Celtic pagan festival known as Samhain, which marked the transition between the lighter and darker halves of the year. It was also believed that this was the time when the veil between the human and spiritual realms was at its thinnest, and this is a belief that still exists in spiritual circles to this day. Samhain was a time for preparing for the winter. Crops were harvested and feasts were held to celebrate the harvest. This festival, which now begins at dusk on October 31st, marked the end of summer and the harvest, and the beginning of winter. The Celts, who lived about 2,000 years ago in present-day Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France, believed that the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred around this time. And it was also believed that the ghosts who lived in the spirit world returned to the world of the living. As it still is today, it was also considered an excellent time to practice divination due to the stronger connections to the spirit world, which was believed to exist in tandem with the human world. In fact, if you know someone who's taking a liking to the occult, chances are you've heard some talk about communing with that person's ancestors. When Christianity reached Ireland in the 5th century CE, the Catholic Church thought it would be a good idea to incorporate certain pagan festivities into the Catholic calendar, Samhain being one of these. And thus, All Saints' Day was born. While initially assigned to the 13th of May, it was eventually moved to November 1st. By the 14th century, All Saints' Day was a widespread holiday, but it didn't really begin to resemble Halloween as we know it for another century or so. These days in the spiritual community, Samhain is also called the Witch's New Year, and is the first festival on the pagan wheel of the year, in between Mabon, which falls on the autumnal equinox, and Yule, which falls on the winter solstice. And because Yule is a 10-day celebration, it also happens to overlap with everyone's favorite capitalist holiday, Christmas. Touching on the spiritual aspects of this time of the year, Halloween itself has a bit of a bad reputation, mostly from the people who think it's a day of worshipping and trying to summon demons. Take this how you will, but as someone who's been researching the occult for a little over 2 years now, I can assure you that 99.9% of the time, the biggest risk you run is overloading on sugar from all the candy you're probably going to eat. No spirits are going to show up in your living room or something unless you actually believe they will. But if your house has been blessed or is otherwise protected against that sort of stuff, or if you just don't believe in spirits, then you have nothing to worry about. If you're still apprehensive about this sort of thing, though, you can always do a little something extra to make absolute sure you're warding off any unwanted guests. If you're more inclined towards the metaphysical, you can always do a quick spell to protect your house. If you want an extra boost, light a black candle, as black is one of the best colors for protection and banishing negativity. White candles can act as a substitute for any color, so if you don't have a black candle, you can use that too. I've also heard some people say red is a good color for protection, but honestly, I really only use red in more ambitious, passionate matters. If you're unsure as to what to say exactly, focus on your desire to protect your house and whatever else you think needs protecting, and imagine it being protected by some unseen forces. You can say whatever you want, but a spell is always a bit more effective if you're the one coming up with the words. You gotta believe in your dreams, man. But if you want something that doesn't require as much hassle, you can take a page from my aunt and put 1 head of garlic on a bed of salt. And if you have multiple heads of garlic, just place them everywhere in your house. If you're so inclined, but I'm not the kind of person who goes overkill on that stuff. Other hassle-free methods include praying to whatever god you believe in and getting a crystal for protection. It's a popular belief in spiritual circles that each crystal, aside from being a shiny rock, has its own purpose and connection to the universe. So, in a way, they kind of serve as a sort of good luck charm. If you want to try this for yourself, some crystals that can best be used for protection include black tourmaline, onyx, hematite, and black obsidian. I've noticed black obsidian has a more potent vibe to it, so use it wisely, I suppose. Here's something that takes a bit more time but is also worth it. If you have the means to create one and know how they work, make a protection jar that will do the same thing. All you have to do is find the appropriate ingredients, focus on your intention as you're putting them in the jar, put the cork back on, and seal it with some black wax. You can use candle wax for that extra effect, but I've also used sealing wax in the past. Also, make sure your jars are free of any weird vibes before you use them. You could use specially prepared water, or just leave them out in the moonlight or the sunlight. There are multiple ways to go about this. Some of my favorite things to put in protection jars include lavender for peace and purity, cinnamon, star anise, bay leaf, and onyx, all for protection, clear quartz and chili flakes for amplifiers, salt for banishing, a slip of paper for the jar's intended purpose, and, of course, the jar itself. Other ingredients you can use include pepper for banishing, peppermint for protection and clearing, frankincense, also for purification, and cloves for protection, and garlic. Results aren't usually immediate. Give it some time for things to work. People around the world have been trying to protect their belongings and themselves since who knows when. Many pantheons from many different civilizations had deities that were responsible for protection, though deities that are more specific to the hearth and home include the Greek goddess Hestia, who actually is the goddess of the hearth and home, along with the Egyptian deity Bes, who was considered to be the protector of households. Notably, there is also the Egyptian goddess Bastet, who is said to be the goddess of protection and the bringer of good health. Also, asking the angels for help was another good way to get protection. People have also been using herbs, stones, and other symbols for millennia, and some people continue to use these today. So, your house has been protected. Now what? There are a great many things you can do on Halloween besides going out and getting candy. And if you already have candy, you can stuff your face. Go ahead, I won't stop you. Earlier in this video, I mentioned that some people like to try and contact their ancestors on Halloween night. Personally, I don't, because even though a majority of spirits are harmless, I still find spirit work in general to be kinda risky. If you're inclined to do something like this, then you can always do more extensive research, because I'm pretty sure this would require an essay and a lot more expertise. But some of the things I've seen on my researching adventures on the internet include setting up an altar for your ancestors and giving offerings to them, particularly the things they enjoyed while they were alive. You could also try to reach out to them during meditation and ask them to impart some sort of advice, or you can do the method that I've seen most often. Try to contact them through divination and ask for advice that way. Another thing you can do is decorate your space, or if you have some sort of altar, you can decorate that as well. Some things you can use are pumpkins, squash, nuts and berries, dried leaves, and acorns and wine. There are a number of methods of divination, including tarot, scrying, and tea leaf reading, all of which require their own miniature essays. If you seek guidance or life advice for the year ahead, there are a number of Halloween tarot spreads you can find. But if you have a few questions in mind already, you can ask those too. Some normal things you can do on Halloween include the usual activities. Put on a costume, eat some candy and overload on sugar, enjoy some hot chocolate or tea, or some hot cider. If you're good at cooking, there are a number of herbs that are associated with Samhain. Allspice, mugwort, rosemary, sage, catnip, and acorns, to name a few. Some of these are edible, and you can use them in your food. Do not throw toilet paper at your neighbors' houses. And on that note, don't throw eggs either. Don't try to summon demons. They should be self-explanatory. Now, in the event I get someone in the comments going, "Oh, but Christine, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is based in demon worship." I'm literally trying to help you keep the demons out of your house. You're welcome. And speaking partially on that topic, Ouija boards. I've never touched one, I don't plan on doing so, like, ever. You've probably seen a few people who will tell you how dangerous they are and to never use them alone and to take all of the proper precautions, things like that. You can also do research on how to properly use one and all of the precautions, as I said. I mean, I won't stop you, but I can't really say I recommend using them. Don't steal all the candy. This goes without saying, always leave some sugary goodness for the next person. I mentioned All Saints Day. As it so happens, this holiday in particular is a huge deal in the Philippines, where it's considered a celebration in honor of all the saints. Families will usually get up early and drive to the cemetery to spend the whole day with their relatives that have moved on. And I say early because according to my mom, the traffic on the way is bumper-to-bumper traffic. The family members who are still living bring lots of food as offerings along with flowers, and also because, as I said, it's a whole day affair. Some families even spend the whole night in the cemetery and also clean the graves. Part of All Saints' Day is also spent in the church, and many attend Mass as a religious requirement. Back on the topic of Samhain, this festival was a time when people would light bonfires, but even early on, people were also wearing costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, this time to ward off ghosts. Bonfires were meant to be sacred, and people made sacrifices such as crops to the Celtic deities. By the end of the celebration, the hearth fires were relit from the sacred bonfire to protect people's homes during the coming winter. Have you ever seen people bawling for apples on Halloween? Some say this derives from the Roman holiday dedicated to the goddess Pomona, who was the goddess of fruit and trees, and Pomona's symbol happened to be the apple. Now, why am I talking about Roman holidays? By the mid-1st century CE, the Romans had conquered the majority of Celtic territory, and 2 Roman festivals were combined with Samhain over the course of the next 400 years. The other Roman festival was Feralia, a day in late October when the Romans commemorated their dead. Another popular ritual was mirror gazing, in which people tried to catch a glimpse of their future by looking into the mirror. There are also records of favors resembling fortune cookies being given out. These didn't actually involve fortune cookies, but people wrote messages in milk on paper and folded the notes and placed them into walnut shells, which were then heated over a fire. This allowed the milk to turn a certain shade of brown, and the recipient would see what was written on the paper. And that brings us to the end of this Halloween survival guide. You should have nothing to worry about, unless something very unusual happens, but like I said, this is a rare occurrence. In any case, go out, enjoy the candy, and don't ruin other people's houses. Not only can this result in property damage, it's also bad for karma. If you made it to the end of this video and want more book talk and quality shenanigans from me, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a pumpkin emoji in the comments if you made it this far. Also be sure to follow me on my social medias for extra meme content. Thanks for watching. Candy time. Honestly, Twix might be one of my favorites aside from Three Musketeers and Kit Kats.